This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, macroeconomics students. Professor George here. This is the third presentation of 3 to go over the basics of demand, the basics of supply, and now we're going to do market equilibrium. These presentations are going to form a lot of what you're going to do the rest of the semester. So please take the time to go through them maybe a couple of times and do all your practice problems. All right, let's get right down to it. Share my screen with you. I've been having some technical problems, but I am not going to stop. If it gets messed up, I'm just going to keep going. So this is market equilibrium. Economists love equilibrium. It's kind of like Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold. It's just right. There's a real preference. Like if you're not at equilibrium, you're going to get there. It's the heart of economics, is that movement towards equilibrium. So what's a market? That's a hard thing to say anymore with the likes of Amazon and places like that. A market is just buyers and sellers interacting, then they'll determine the price and the quantity. So in the old days, think of it as like an auction, you know, use this much and this much and this much sold. That's kind of what markets are like, even on the big scale. In our class, since it's the beginning of economics, the price that is charged for the product is determined by this interaction of supply and demand. So we're making an assumption that the individual producer cannot set prices. They just take the price that's given to them from the market. So the way we're going to do this in this chapter is that we're going to have equilibrium. And when you're in equilibrium, it's kind of like, perfect. The sun comes parts and everything's perfect. What it really means is the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied are equal to one another. At equilibrium, we have no surplus and we have no shortage. So before we get to equilibrium, we're going to go over what is a surplus and what is a shortage, and then we'll go to equilibrium. Surplus just makes sense, doesn't it? The surplus is going to be, you know, when the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded. If there's more things you're trying to sell that people want to buy, you have a surplus. And here it is graphically. I just drew this. So you have the demand and supply, they meet, and where they meet is equilibrium. This gives you the equilibrium price, and this gives you the equilibrium quantity. If this is being sold at this equilibrium price, you will be at this wonderful place where neither quantity demand or quantity supplied is greater. They're equal. But at this price, P1, we can see that this price is considered too high to this market. So what's my quantity demanded? I don't know. I'm going to take my price and I'm going to go bump into the demand curve and I'm going to go down, and that's my quantity demanded. What's my quantity sold? I don't know. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to bump into the supply curve and I'm going to come down. That's the quantity sold. Quantity supplied. You can see here that the quantity supplied is larger than the quantity demanded, and that's why we have a surplus. What do you think is going to happen in this market to get us down to the equilibrium price? Well, if there's a lot of surplus laying around, they got to get rid of it. They're going to lower prices to get us back to equilibrium. I'm having trouble with my computer. I'm getting there. Don't give up on me. So what's a shortage? A shortage is the opposite of a surplus. It exists when the quantity supplied is less than the quantity demanded. So you have more stuff than people want to buy. The quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded. Now let's look at that on a graph. It's going to be like this. Again, at PE, which is the equilibrium price, the quantity supplied, the quantity demanded are equal, and they give you this equilibrium price. If the price is lower than the equilibrium price, if you're going to go over here and bump into the supply curve, this is the quantity supplied. You take this price and you go over and you bump into the demand curve, this is the quantity demanded. Ooh, I labeled this wrong. So the quantity demanded in this, I'm going to change that. The quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied. In other words, people want more than is being supplied. So there's going to be a shortage. What's going to happen if there's a shortage? The price will get bid up. Now let's talk about equilibrium. Equilibrium is where we want to be. It's the Goldilocks. It's the just right. So this information is the information that we just had in those tables. You see, only at one place do we have the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded are equal, and there's going to be no difference. So we're in equilibrium, and when we're in equilibrium, we're pretty much going to stay there. When the price was too high above the equilibrium price, we had a surplus. When you have a surplus, there's pressure on prices to fall. Down here, the price was below equilibrium. You had a shortage, and that's going to put an upward pressure on prices. Whoopsie. Sure how to go backwards. Not sure how to go backwards. So let me just talk about where we're going now. Changes in market equilibrium. This is going to be the fun part. So we know what causes a change in demand. There's 6 of them. We know what causes a change in supply. There's 5 of them. So the way these problems will work, please listen. The way these problems are going to work is I'm going to give you a situation that we're going to be in equilibrium. These two things are going to be equal. So quantity supply and quantity demand will be equal. Then some event happens. This event that happens, you have a whole bunch of practice on your study guide. This event that happens, you have to look at your supply determinants, look at your demand determinants, and figure out if it's supply or demand. Once you figure out if it's supply or demand, you got to figure out if it's an increase or a decrease in demand, increase or decrease in supply. You're going to shift that curve, and you're going to get your new price and quantity. Okay, so here, in this graph up here, this is the quantity of Caribbean cruises. It's the demand for cruises. So price per cruise as the price of the cruises just looking at it, the demand for cruises is it's the 600 is lower than the equilibrium, so that will increase the demand. You increase demand by shifting it out, and then the price will go up, and you'll end up at equilibrium. At equilibrium, the quantity is higher, the price level is higher. That's an increase in demand. Here again, you would start this picture with D1, S1. You have your 30, and your 30 is your equilibrium. Now, as the price of gas guzzling cars goes up, the demand will, as the price of gas goes up, the demand is going to decrease. When demand decreases, the whole curve shifts to the left, and we end up at a lower quantity and a lower price. Here's an increase in supply, S1 to S2. There's an increase in supply. When supply increases, the price goes down and the quantity goes up. Here, when you decrease supply, you start out, this is your first X marks the spot. You decrease the supply. When you decrease supply, the quantity goes down and the price goes up. So here is kind of put it all together. Please don't memorize this. Your best bet is to draw the curves and shift them and see where the new price and quantity is. So I'm not going to go through this. You can go through it, but don't memorize it. Draw the curve to teach it to yourself. Okay, let me go back over here. I'm not sharing my screen anymore. So what we learned in this section is that equilibrium is when the price is such that the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded are the same. So you have equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Then we're going to have some event happen. That event will change either your supply or demand curve. It's going to increase it or decrease it. You shift your curve and you find your new equilibrium. I hope this has helped. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there about increasing supply and demand and changing market equilibrium, so check those out. Until next time.